hosting. All right, we are live. Welcome to the Node.js Foundation CTC meeting for April 2016, the 13th of April. We're going to do a stand-up for everyone that's here, and then we'll get into a couple of issues that are on our agenda. For those who keep up with how we usually do these meetings, there was not an issue created on the issue tracker this week, but we have enough people here, so we're going to do a meeting anyways. In the light that V6 is coming out soon, we'll probably have a couple things to discuss. So first on the stand-up is Chalker.
Hi. I don't have anything much to say. I've just commented some issues and pull requests as usual. And some minor security things in the ecosystem. Next one is Colin.
I think Colin's actually here, so next should be Evan.
Yeah, the only thing I've really done, I've commented on a few issues, but I also scheduled the next onboarding session that Friday. So next is Jeremiah.
Hello. I've been doing some assorted documentation sort of things and various other issue and pull request related things, also leading up to V6. And I've also been working on our Node.js GitHub bot, or one that at least a couple of our repositories use, and hopefully we're interacting with the build working group a bit, so hopefully we'll be able to get it running on actual build hardware like the website is. And also there are plans, and we should be able to do it reasonably soon, to actually get Jenkins to tell the bot to grab more info from Jenkins or something like that anyways, and actually post GitHub commit CI statuses from Jenkins for us. So that's going to be really interesting. Next is Rich Trott.
Hi, sorry, I need to find my mute button. I've been reviving and closing old issues. I've been fixing flaky tests, and I've been trying to figure out what's going on with Raspberry Pi 2 devices in CI. I know the build group has been doing some work on fixing them lately, but something's up with their reduced network capacity, connecting to localhost of all things. And so I've been mostly ineffective on that, but it's been consuming a fair amount of time. Next up is Ali.
So I was at the VM summit last week, and past couple of weeks I've been working on the V8 5.0 PR, and since the VM summit I've spent a little bit of time looking at feasibility of doing dynamic FFI in V8. And I think next is Michael Dawson.
Did we lose Michael?
Sorry, I was
on mute.
Yep, sorry. I ran a recent benchmarking meeting. I've been working on moving the PPC big endian machines over to Ubuntu 14 so that we have a supported platform for doing regular releases. I investigated one issue where the tests on AIX were timing out and put a workaround in place for that. Attended the VM face-to-face, did some miscellaneous review, landing, commenting on issues. I worked with Gareth on a benchmarking presentation that's covering some of the work that's being done in the benchmarking work group for Node.js Live tomorrow, and just starting to schedule the next API working group meeting to discuss some of the stuff that we agreed as the way forward in the VM face-to-face. Next is James.
Yeah, so got the version 6 release candidate 1 out. Gonna get the release candidate 2 out probably this evening. Working on some other items, just kind of clearing out some long-standing items on my to-do list. with a number of pull requests, going through doing issue triaging and that kind of thing. So. I don't have the list right in front of me. So.
Yeah, I'll take it. Here's Stephen. Yeah, so working on ICU build updates. I was at the V8 Summit also. So I have 6088, which is actually should be on the agenda today, and also working on disable break-it earlier when not available. Next is Trevor.
Only thing of note is the domain postmortem PR with documentation. I don't have the list in front of me.
I think you're the last one.
I think you're the last. So I did miss some of the agenda because some of it's in pull requests, and I did not see that, but I'm going to do that while some of us discuss the agenda. James, would you be willing to discuss planning for V6, status updates and all that on that?
Yeah, so as far as planning for V6, it's really straightforward. Anything that lands, by the time we actually do the cut, will be included. The actual release, I'm currently looking at the 26th. Cutting that's a Tuesday. Keeping a very close eye on V8 version 5 to see when it goes stable. It's supposed to go stable, I believe, right around the 17th, 18th, or 19th, right around in there. I'm not sure, Ali.
It went stable about 2 hours ago.
Oh, nice. So if we can get the version 5 landed in master, then we can get that included in the release candidates as quickly as possible. Other than that, it's pretty much just what.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, for the next RC, I mean, if you can't get 5.0 landed before, then I think it would make sense to wait on the RC to make sure we get feedback on 5.0.
Yeah.
So we need LTGMs on the pull request for 5.0.
Excuse me. So I mean, yeah, that's really it. I don't think there's really any significant issues at this point, other than the B8 landing.
Okay.
I know that there are a few Simber majors that are still kind of pending to see if they're going to land in time. At this point, though, I don't think there's anything that would hold us up if it doesn't land. I think we're just good to go.
So you plan on cutting, when's your plan for the full release?
On the 26th.
On the 26th. So that gives us about not quite 2 weeks to test V8 4.5.
Yep.
You mean 5.0?
5.0.
5.0, yeah. Is everyone here comfortable with that? Seems like an okay thing to me.
Yeah, I wonder, do we make it's sort of it's the first time we have like a 6.0 stable. It's a little bit different than a 5.0 stable, right? I just don't know if, I guess we make an announcement so people know, hey, if you're taking the latest stable at the time, that becomes a little bit of a bigger jump.
Well, it's not going to be LTS yet, right?
Right. Yeah. The 6.0 will not be LTS until next October.
Yeah.
The 6.0 will you know, on the website you should see version 4 still is the LTS and version 6 is the latest stable. I don't think it's really been decided how long we're going to keep maintaining version 5. But it's not LTS, right? So.
Right. It won't really end up being on the front download page anymore, right?
Right.
I was
Yeah.
just, I'm not sure that there's an issue here. I was just thinking through that if somebody is consumes stable regularly, this event is slightly different than any of the other stable releases. but it's probably obvious from the name, so maybe there's no issue.
What event is different?
Well, when it goes to 6, there's a lot more change than there's been in any of the previous stables, right?
Right. Well, that's because it's a major. Like,
Yeah.
so 6 is not on an existing stable branch. It's a new stable branch. This is not a release onto V5. It shouldn't be
Right.
considered as such.
Yeah, I
Right?
agree.
So this is not like a Semver minor upgrade that's on V5, and we need to message it as such. Like, this is a new stable branch.
Yeah.
I think what we'll do is probably definitely do, maintenance related stuff to V5 for about a month, and give maybe an extra month for any big security things. Something like that will probably be what ends up happening, I think, depending on how much people are interested in maintaining it. I think definitely at least a month and just a little bit for security patches. But
I thought we had defined it in that document that Rod had. I thought it was defined that it would stay, continue to get updates. I don't know. Let me try and find the document.
I think it's supposed to be maintained regularly for a month. I'm not sure. I think it might get a little bit confusing personally if we land lots of features on it. So maybe we can avoid landing all the Semver minors on it, but still maintain it otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, if you've only got a month to go, it's kind of like, do you need any of that stuff? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing, James, so is it the 26th when we'll cut a new tag or branch or whatever it's going to be?
Yes. So on the 26th, the new V6X branch will be created.
Okay.
All right, and the version in master will be bumped to V7 pre.
Right. Okay, I was just wanted to plan for when I need to add a new entry for the benchmarking graphs and stuff.
Right.
Would it be perhaps useful to already do that? Oh, wait, you're already testing master, aren't you?
Yeah, like there's already a master, so until we branch, master is effectively the same.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I might do a little bit of work in advance to get the numbers and whatever ready, but yeah, I was just checking for when I should actually make sure we've got something ready.
Do we have any update on the? I think we're done on V6 for now. Does anyone else have anything to discuss on that?
Don't think so.
Does anyone have an update on the legal stuff, or do we just need to shelve that until next time Michael's here?
Probably have to show that for Michael's here. Now, there was another issue that I'm hoping when Rod can actually be here, we can kind of talk through it a bit, where the board raised a question about CLAs, and we need to have a discussion about it, where basically the board is asking us to adopt a mechanism for having a CLA, individual CLA and corporate CLA.
We don't need that because the DCO though.
Yeah, there's some complications with that the DCO is copyright only. It's a fairly complicated conversation, so let's hold off until Rod gets here, but it is something that needs to be on the agenda for.
Wait, who are we planning on having sign this? Because we're not having everyone sign that. I'm going to oppose that and take it to the board in some way or other. Like that's the most contributor unfriendly thing you can do is have everyone have to sign something.
We've at the board meeting, at the Node board meeting, both Rod and I raised that concern. Like I said, it's a fairly complicated set of issues, so let's not discuss it
Okay.
right now.
Yeah.
But let's make sure it's on the agenda for next time.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Just, I mention it now only to make y'all aware that it is a discussion that's been had.
Noted. Open an issue for it, please, and let's move on.
Yep.
I want to say that our LTS release license still have a clause that additional policies and restrictions from NPM website are incorporated into the license agreement. And it looks like it hasn't been fixed on the NPM side. NPM version 3 has the British license, when the latest NPM version 2, which is present in our LTS branch, has the old license with the additional clause, and it looks like it has not been solved yet.
I thought that was this resolved in 4.4.2, or did we not get an NPM release to it yet? I know there was an NPM pull request recently, but it was a little bit late, and Miles decided to do the 4.4.3 release without it, I think. Let me double check. I don't think that NPM release was in that, but I thought we already got the license in an upstream update from it. I might be wrong now.
We certainly have a relatively recent NPM.
Okay, so 4.4.3 has an upgrade from NPM and LTS to 2.15.1. I will link that issue in the chat.
NPM version 2 still has the old license. It hasn't been updated in the latest version of the branch 2.
So are you saying that it's updated in 3 but not in 2?
Yes, I opened an issue for that, but it was somewhere closed. I think that it is a mistake.
One second. Oh yeah, I see. I thought that was updated in NPM LTS. We'll have to contact them again.
I already opened an issue at the NPM tracker, but it looks like it was closed somewhere.
Do you think you could get me a link to that issue?
It's in the chat.
Okay, thanks. Let's generally move on now, because we have a couple things.
Okay.
I think so. The next issue is, let me read it. Where is it? HTTP/server request.socket.bytesread is always 0 for incoming message. This is a bug, and I tagged it for some reason. I think Fedor wanted to discuss it, but he's not here. And neither is Colin or anyone else. James, did you look at that at all?
Which one was it? Sorry, broke up.
It's the next issue in the meeting notes. It's let me copy the link. That one. About bytesread always being 0 for incoming message.
Yeah, so this one, basically, because of the way HTTP parser works, it bypasses the mechanism in readable, stream readable, that increments bytesread. So bytesread always ends up being 0 on incoming message. And there doesn't appear to be any simple way of fixing it. So the question is, do we need to drop bytesread from incoming message, or try to find some way of fixing it and having the value there? So that's the question.
Is bytesread new, or is it something that's always been there?
It's always been there as part of the readable stream, and it
Right.
used to work on the server, on the HTTP server before. I don't know when exactly it stopped working apparently, but from what Fedora, what I implied from what Fedora said, there were some changes to HTTP parser at some point that completely bypassed that whole bit of code within readable. So that, I mean, it's just not even, that part of the readable stream is not even used anymore for incoming stream. So.
Well, I think the bytesread is actually at the net.socket layer, I think. And I think what happened was, I can't remember if it was about, I don't know, 6 months or more ago, maybe now back in August or somewhere around there, Fedora had basically bypassed the net.socket layer entirely and just did all the parsing, HTTP parsing in C++ land. And so that's why it didn't update that value after that.
Right.
I mean, is it an option to drop that method? Like, is that not something that people depend on, or? I guess nobody's noticed so far, but.
Well, it was noticed because Sam Roberts, Sam GitHub, apparently was going to do some either tests or being able to do some metrics based on it, and discovered that it was always 0. So we have an open issue, which is what raised it, brought it to our attention. So there are folks that were trying to use it, maybe not a lot, but there are some. And it is, we do say that incoming message is a readable stream instance, and we say that readable stream has this bytesread, right? So we're kind of violating the contract there based on what we currently document.
And I guess from what you said, the way it worked before, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we might need to, just look at this again. I mean, how many people, other than Fedor, how many people have actually looked at this and tried to find a solution to it?
I could probably find a solution, but it would take me a lot longer than Fedora.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'd even be willing to. It kind of bypasses the JS streams C++ bypass, but I mean, you can even do this in userland by setting up a connection listener on the HTTP server and then setting up the data event on the on that connection, and then just count the bytes going through. So like, it's possible, right? The question is, what will be the result of it? And yeah, until we have a little bit more of an investigation, I say we just don't bother discussing whether we drop it or not, because I think that's a, right?
It probably should be tagged as needs to be resolved before 6 goes out, though. Because like if it's okay in previous releases, probably want to make that decision before then, right?
Well, see, I thought that the deal was you couldn't even get data events anymore just because it was all being consumed at the C++ layer.
No, that's a weird little hiccup. You can't get readable events. You can still get data events. Right, so if you do readable and then you do try and do dot read, nothing shows up there. But if you listen to the raw, like just the on data event, it'll still pass it through.
Huh. Okay.
Whoever asked about for 6.0, that it looks like it's been happening since Node.js 4.1.0.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
guess it's not a.
a good while already.
Yeah. It won't be a surprise when people move to sec. So then, okay, I agree. It's not a blocker on that front.
Do we have anything else to discuss on that? You guys know, I did actually look up the NPM license thing. So the license in v4.x is actually updated in NPM, but it's possible that it has not been updated in our combined node license. And I think Rod was still going to look at that.
Is it really updated in NPM? I linked to the lines that are bothering me.
Where did you link to it? Did I miss?
In the issue and in the chat, I think. I can link to it again.
Right. So that how it is that still is there.
I just repeated the link.
Pardon?
I just resend the link
Yeah.
to the chat.
I see that now. So that is under, there's a heading above that that says the following additional terms shall apply to use of the NPM software, the NPM website, and the NPM repository. But that doesn't actually, as far as I understand, that doesn't actually apply to the code, because it's the license file no longer says it's additional terms on the artistic license. So it's, I'm pretty sure our legal whatever actually thought that was okay.
It said that it's applied to the NPM software on the line 238. It says that the following additional terms shall apply to use of the NPM software, the NPM website, the NPM repository, and any other services or products offered by NPM Inc. And the lines that I linked to say that additional policies relating to and restrictions on use of NPM products and services that I think includes the NPM software are available on the NPM website. All such policies and restrictions, as updated from time to time, are hereby incorporated into this license agreement. By using NPM, you acknowledge your agreement to all such policies and restrictions. And NPM is just the client. If someone is using NPM, it's not necessary that he or she is using the NPM repository.
Right. I think the terms only, we're not lawyers, so I'm not exactly sure how it works out, but I'm pretty sure that legally it only works out that that actually applies to the NPM as a company and NPM their services, and the actual client is licensed under just the artistic license. If there's further issues with that, we should, I don't know, make sure there's some issue for it, and we should probably discuss it offline because we're not really getting that far in this meeting.
Well, I mean, should we even be discussing it? We have lawyers as part of the foundation. Why don't we just?
Yeah, exactly. I thought they already resolved it, but
just wanted to note that the license in the new branch, which is version 3 point something, is fixed, and it doesn't have that clause anymore. And I just don't see why not update the license in the old branch.
We'll have to take a look at it afterwards. So moving on, Stephen, you had something about checking this small ICU into the repo. I think we've had this discussion before. What What are you proposing exactly?
Yeah, so this was given a, I'm going to tag this one. You tag this. You tag this. Jeremiah. 5 days ago. So I think as far as what, one question is just, so where we are at the latest, I kind of gave an executive summary to our executive team here. In the agenda, this includes a bump to ICU V57. There's platform issues currently. One of them, FreeBSD, just a host versus target toolset command line issue. This is not a new issue with this, but it's just exposed. So this has obviously been, these two issues have been long time issues with these platforms, but we haven't seen them with ICU for some reason.
Right.
So let's see here. So the JIP issue, Johannes, I think is fixing that, or has a fix in progress basically. And the Raspberry Pi cross build, I need some help with how to actually do this cross build, and I can try to make some progress here. But otherwise, this should be pretty much ready to go. Now, I might be able to improve the build time somewhat. That could be a future change to this. And actually, I might be able to reduce the source files further, and just as far as number of files checked in. This is a question on what the right timing for landing this is.
Right. So last time I wasn't sure if we were actually going to go ahead with this. In terms of cross-build issues, you probably should talk to Rod about that, because I think he did most of that when he has time. Stephen also notes here that the size would be about 20 megabytes in dep/ICU-small. That's about 892 files. So part of why I wanted to bring this up is because I think I saw some discussion from James is if we should actually be building with ICU by default.
Yep. Yeah, there's a right now, in order to do the build, you have to manually enable it, but our releases, it's on by default. There's also something I actually need to confirm this with the V8 team and Ali. There was a comment made last week at the VM Summit that there's apparently some discussions about whether or not to rely more on ICU in V8 and pull out or no longer support some of the kind of the more homegrown Unicode functions that are in V8. Can you confirm that?
Actually, Jochen would be the right person to answer that one. I would suggest talking on the issue because the time zone doesn't match for Germany for this discussion.
Yeah, currently within V8 there are some Unicode features that if ICU is not present, they provide an alternative implementation for. And the discussion last week was either that it was being looked at, or it's either being considered or being planned to no longer support those additional pieces, so that if ICU is not present,
well, the way it would work is yeah. So the way it would work, for example, regular expressions rely on spec compliant regular expressions require ICU to be present. So if it's not present, your JavaScript will behave differently. So that's really was a concern. Like if Node is building without ICU, you may get spec incompliant behavior.
Right. Yeah, there are more and more features, especially with ES6, that require ICU, such as the regex, and also even string.normalize, string.length locale compare, I think, is in the flow notes. That's 402, but certainly string.normalize is one that's ECMA 262 compliance issue. So there are more and more things that are not just in the kind of Intel corner of things. But there is the desire to reduce footprint on smaller platforms. Footprint here is 5 megabytes of binary at this point. In the English only case.
Is this discussion leading towards holding off on this and waiting for more discussion somewhere then? Or
well, I think the platform issues are probably gating at this point, because otherwise, as things stand, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, if the FreeBSD and RPi CI start falling over, that's a broken. That means we're broken. So
yeah, I think so.
I would have.
right.
So I would be. Yeah. Go ahead.
How much compile time does ICU take? Because like another thing we got to think about is like we already take like a really long time if anyone wants to compile it on something like that. It might
that's
take.
Why yeah, that's why I put my note about improved build time, because I realized I may be able to improve the build time further, because the data. I was just realizing this as the cross-platform issues going through. Since the data file is already pre-stripped, I don't need to build as many of the tooling in this case, even compared to building ICU from download as we do today, because there's nowhere you can download the exact data file Node uses, but if we check in that data file, then we don't have to rebuild it. So I could probably improve the build time a bit more. I don't have exact metrics on the difference, but I can get that for you.
Okay. And you said there'd be updates to this probably 4 times a year or something to ICU?
No, I'd say max twice a year. But I mean, Node could pick it up once a year and probably be fine. That's about what we were doing at this point. And I don't have an idea of how many of these files would be changed, what the delta would be. Definitely the what's it called? The 1 megabyte binary file would be a delta. And some number of the other files would be.
Okay. I guess we'll take that back to the issue then. James, you tagged the next one. So this is dark and TLS deprecate create secure pair.
Let me look. Yeah, this one I don't have a lot of context on. It was just a conversation that came up. Someone, I don't have the issue up in front of me, but was proposing that this could be deprecated, and because of that, it just needed to be reviewed. It's not one that I believe we've talked about before. So it's really, are there any objections to deprecating this? Is there a reason to keep it around?
What's the rationale for deprecating it?
I don't believe there was one given in the
So the description is create secure pair uses TLS_legacy and the legacy connection class, I think, from node_crypto.cc. Deprecated them in favor of using TLS socket class.
This is probably one that we're going to have to maybe have Fedora and project the way in. So.
Yeah. I like the suggestion of an example saying, here's how you use the new one too.
It looks like Chalker's grep for its usage in npm modules wasn't too large. So some of those libraries might be used a good bit, though. I'm not actually sure. Okay, we'll just move that to when they are here. And the last issue was something I brought up. So back, some context on this. So back like probably, yeah, back a year ago, we decided to deprecate the util.is type matching functions because there were some issues necessarily maintaining those. And some people disagreed on certain things like is object, how that had actually function. So we went ahead and did a docs deprecation, and this was supposed to be a actual deprecation that was scheduled for 6.0. However, now we've actually changed, so the parts that would be potentially broken by having object to string being modifiable, we've actually moved to C++, where they are virtually guaranteed to be correct. So we can we can guarantee that regexes we're actually returning true for regexes and false for anything else, because that check is actually done in C++ now. And an issue is we don't really use these functions necessarily. We use some of them, but are they worth keeping around and exposing? Mostly because otherwise people would have to build a native add-on to necessarily check if something is for sure a symbol, or whichever the ones used object to string like date. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
Okay, so if we're worried about allowing users to be able to use a function that allows them to find information out about something, and basically we want to say, okay, we want to allow a safe way in case anybody changes object to string. That kind of sounds like the argument. What would prevent anybody from overwriting the util is methods? We have to make them all read-only. Unless we're willing to make all the is methods read-only, like that would be at least a baseline of saying, okay, let's keep them.
I don't really have much to comment on that.
From the silence, it sounds like nobody else does either, so seems nobody here at least has a strong opinion of whether we get rid of them or keep them.
I would rather them, keep, like I said, the ones that aren't easy to do, without having, to build an add-on or, whatever. I think it's much nicer for the end user. But I mean, like the ones that are really simple to do in like JavaScript land or whatever, then, I'm fine with keeping those deprecated.
It looks like at least the isRegex function is pretty used in the npm models. I mean that it looks like there are many models that use it.
I haven't looked at it recently, but are we basically just taking all the V8 value is methods and exposing those to JavaScript? I mean, that'd basically be like a whole bunch of one-liners in C++.
There is a lot of one-liner things. A lot of it reduces down to type of checks. Like is string, is symbol, all those are is a type of check. And I think they're only there for consistency or something. We do also have, again, the ones such as isDate, which are now done in C++, which are in C++ just a really easy type check. And I'm not really sure why these checks don't exist just in JavaScript. Maybe we should ask TC39 about that or something. There's also some combined checks that I think we originally used internally, like is null or undefined exists for some reason. And also we have an is primitive, which is sort of like is null and undefined mixed with some other check or something like that.
Okay, so the is null or undefined was, at the time, if I recall, was me being kind of sarcastic to Isaac, because the reason these came about was that Ben put in macros to do quick checks, and Isaac didn't like macros in code, and so he went ahead and swapped them out with the is checks, and then I said, whoa, well, let's go ahead and extend them with the full set. Then the primitive, simply I put in to match V8's implementation of primitive, but the problem is that has changed with new spec, and so honestly the easiest way to do that at this point would be to just call into C++ and do the is primitive check.
Oh, so is that one we should change to C++ call? Because it's not right now.
Yeah,
or would that change functionality?
No.
If it would change functionality, that's like the entire problem we had before, where is object also returned a function? No. Yeah, also returns true for functions, and some people think that's incorrect.
Okay, well, I mean, okay, so V8 basically returns what the class inheritance model is, and so if you were to pass in a string and say is primitive, sure, yeah, it's going to return true. If you pass in regex, okay, so if you return like but if you pass a new string to is object, then it should return true, right? So if you just pass in a string literal, then it shouldn't return true. As far as I'm concerned, whatever the C++ API returns is the correct implementation. And so if it changes functionality by switching to the C++ API, then ours was wrong.
So is the thing that we're sort of settling on is to deprecate all the things that are just type of checks and only expose the C++ ones?
That sounds good to me.
Yep. Wasn't the original reason suggested to deprecate them because some of them were harder to implement than others, and we're maybe keeping the harder ones and getting rid of the rest?
So I've already gone over a little bit of this. It was sort of a mix of these weren't necessarily used by us, and they can be done easily in userland. Also, some of them, like is object, are a little bit controversial in how they necessarily work, because you could say, oh, a function is an object, or a function should not show up as an object because we're only testing object literals, and that's a little bit unclear, and I'm not sure there really is a way to clarify it without using whatever V8's API is.
Yeah, like in the function case, you'd have to say, okay, well, are we going to follow the prototype chain? In that case, yes, you're going to hit object. But as far as like the class inheritance model, function does not inherit from object, right? And so in that case, it wouldn't be. But yeah, it totally depends on which avenue you say we should take in type checking.
Right. There was one last reason, and that's previously for some things like errors and dates, which don't have native type of checks in JavaScript. We used object to string to see what the constructor name was. But that is going to be modifiable in ES6 now, so we can't necessarily guarantee that. And that's why some of those checks have been moved to JavaScript now, to C++ now, but originally that was a reason for doing this. Okay, well, unless anyone has any other comments or objections or anything, I'm gonna update this to deprecate everything that can be done easily in JavaScript and then only have undeprecated the C++ links.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think that's all for today. We're already past the hour, so I think we should probably just close out.
If I can just bring up one, there's no discussion around this, just a mention, so it's on everybody's minds. The module EP, we need to settle on, we've already settled that an extension was the best idea, but we haven't settled on what that extension should be. Personally, I think we should just stick with .jsm. From all the discussion, it seems like that would be the easiest to use, but we will need a formal vote for the EP so that we can solidify that and land it. Thanks, that's all.
Is there any reason not to use JSM over something else?
Because other people want different extensions.
Like,
.es.
Firefox already uses GSM for their extensions.
Sorry, say that again?
Firefox already uses the GSM extension for their models.
who uses it?
Mozilla Firefox. And those files are also present in some NPM models for some reason.
Oh,
Okay. Well, let's, I'll put it on the agenda. We can have more discussion on this next week. But yeah, this is exactly what needs to be hashed out of what the CTC is fine saying, yes, we're okay using this extension. Yeah, and this is completely for next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Adios.
Bye.